This week on The Wise Guys.
Hard. And I started learning things as I was going along, like, okay, let me secure this internship here, which would give me experience in this and give me an opportunity to meet some people and learn some things that have put me in a different position. And sometimes that come with sacrifices that some of our students may not even be able to make because they're trying to pay for they're in college, now they're working full time, maybe at a fast food or retail just to get through college, so they don't even have the privilege of taking an internship because either it's no pay or it's little pay, and they're on their own because they're independent students. So I feel like it's so many things to factor in, right? So it's like, okay, a student is passionate about their higher education and this is what they want to do, but how do we talk about, once again, getting these students through effectively and the systemic.
Yo, what's up, everybody? This is Kevin Anglade, and you are now tuning in to the Wise Guys podcast, brought to you by Flowered Concrete. Check it out. Yo, what's going on? This is your boy, Kevin Anglade.
And this is Mark Pruden.
And we are the Wise Guys podcast. We're back, and yet we are back for another week. Mark, what's been going on, bro? I feel as if, like, even though we've been talking through text and whatnot, we haven't actually recorded a podcast in about 2.5, 3 weeks together.
Exactly, man. It's great. Can't complain. Just a daily grind, trying to make it out.
Yeah.
Enjoying the process. How about you?
Oh man, chilling, bro. I really can't complain, man. Just happy to, still be alive, right? Still be breathing. And just you know how it goes, Mark. Guys like us just always strategizing, man. Always plotting the next move.
Yeah, definitely.
Just never over. Right now I'm heavy into working on this book right now. The new poetry collection I got going on. So I'm just trying to kind of finalize which parts are going to stay, which parts aren't going to stay, and just kind of just trimming the fat. But yeah, man. But it's looking pretty good. And also, we're not going to talk about it right now, but you're in the book as well, right? I think you did a little something for me.
Absolutely, bro.
Yeah. Nah.
Stay tuned.
For sure. I can't wait to talk about it when that time comes. But yeah, so that in itself will be a story for another day. But today we have another story in particular that we would love to focus on and talk about. We're a podcast that's geared towards providing, wisdom that'll allow the wise community, to face the challenges as well as try to overcome the challenges, navigate through the roadblocks in order to reach success. And I feel as if so far through these first 17 and now 18 episodes, Mark, we've been accomplishing that pretty well thus far. What you think?
Absolutely, bro. Definitely staying true to the mission and what we're trying to do for the community. So it's a beautiful thing.
It is, man. It's a beautiful thing. Now, Mark, we have a very special guest coming onto the podcast today.
Absolutely, definitely.
Now, this guest, wise community, ladies and gents, this is actually the first guest that either Mark or myself do not know personally. We have not met this young man personally yet, and we did not know him prior. So kind of, to kind of segue everything and, bring this all in. So, I be on the gram sometimes, right? Like we all kind of do sometimes. And I remember I was scrolling, and I guess I follow our former alma mater, CUNY Queensboro. And so this young man right here, his story just popped up on my feed. I was like, okay, this is something positive. Let me check this out. So I clicked it, and then, what I happened to stumble across was the story of a young fellow African-American man. And as I was looking at him, I was like, you know what? Let me open this and see what this is, because he looks very familiar. I feel like I've seen him around before at Queensboro. So I clicked the link that opened it up to my Chrome browser, and then it brought me to a Forbes op-ed of a young man by the name of Jermaine Meadows, who, man, I was reading his story and I was immediately engrossed, Mark. I was immediately engrossed because I was like, wow, here's a young man who comes from, I'm going to let him tell his story. I'm not really going to get too much into it, but I was like, here's a young man who comes from, a low-income community within Brooklyn itself, and this guy is such an inspiration. I don't know this guy, but man, I would have never known all of this stuff had I not read his op-ed, and not getting, and had I not gotten the chance to get the nitty-gritty and the grimy from his own story in particular, and what he's been able to accomplish and overcome, in this short amount of time frame in his life. So I thought it was really, really important that we get him on. So, ladies and gents, pretty much right after that, I reached out to him on LinkedIn, and I asked him if he'd like to come on the podcast, and he was like, yeah, sure, definitely. I would love to. It'd be my pleasure. Now, he's a very busy young man. We're also fellow, really busy fellow young men as well, so it's been kind of hard trying to find a time to, stabilize everything to get him on the show, but I'm happy to say that we finally got him on the show today. So, ladies and gents out there in the Wise community, please welcome on to the Wise Guys podcast today, Jermaine Meadows. Jermaine, how you doing, my brother?
I'm good. How you doing? Thanks for having me, brother.
Oh, man, I'm doing well, man. I'm doing okay. How about yourself, Mark?
Doing good, man. Can't complain. Beautiful thing to have you on the podcast today, man.
Thank you for having me. It's my pleasure to be here.
No, absolutely. No, for sure. Jermaine, if you don't mind, would you mind sharing with the Wise community, a 30-second elevated pitch synopsis about who you are, what do you do, and all that jazz?
Sure, no problem. Currently, I'm a graduate student at the University of Albany, studying educational policy and leadership, focused on issues of education, community development, youth development, and other issues around diversity, equity, structural inequality, and access.
Excellent. Now, I really want the Wise community to get, the more so of the particulars. You're going for your master's now, right?
Yes.
Excellent. Yeah, man. That's a really, really, really beautiful thing for sure, man. That's a really, really beautiful thing. And so, Jermaine, as I said, I came across your story, along the lines of Forbes, as an op-ed. Could you please be sure to kind of just give me a quick synopsis in regards to, how that came about, how that came together?
It had came about, I remember maybe like 3 years ago, I got selected as a National Newman Civic Fellow.
Mm-hmm.
And part of that process is it's kind of just leaders from different undergraduate campuses across the nation. They probably select about 300 students and one per university.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of brought us all to Boston for this one conference. And I met someone who was a leader from somewhere else. Mm-hmm. Long story short, we kind of kept that connection. She moved to D.C., started working for this company, and they kind of advocating for free community colleges across the board for everyone.
Right.
So her knowing me and my story, she reached out like, I think this would be a great opportunity. And from there, it was history.
Excellent. That's awesome, bro. That's really, really awesome to hear. Ladies and gents in the Wise community, again, we do not know this young man, but we thought it was very, very important to get him on to share his story with you all, because a lot of people in the Wise community are always saying, where are the young men who, exude, these type of, this type of grit, this type of determination, this type of intellectualism, this prowess, right? In order to show that, that anything is possible, right? That you can, be from the gutters of the Marcy Projects in Brooklyn, or, Southside Jamaica, Queens, where I'm from, or Rosedale, where Mark is from, and still make it out, right? These aren't narratives that should be celebrated and cultivated as like, wow, look, these guys made it out. What I'm trying to say is that we need to get to a point where these type of narratives becomes a normalcy, right? It becomes normalized to have guys such as Jermaine, myself, Mark, or any one of these guys, that we know, such as Jimmy, who's been on the podcast before, or even Gene, any of these guys, this is what this is about. Like, this is what this is about. This is about diversifying the narrative, so that way we know that, guys like Jermaine, aren't an anomaly out there. Like, there's more guys like Jermaine or myself out there, or Mark, right? So that's the whole purpose of this. So, I've been rambling a little bit, so I kind of want to get right into it. Jermaine, if you don't mind sharing, the first segment today is called Humble Beginnings. So we're really going to expound and have an electrifying conversation for the second segment, which is called Break Generational Patterns. And I actually plucked that right out of your article. But I want to start with Humble Beginnings. Could you tell me, or not just me, but could you tell the Wise community out there how you got started in regards to, growing up in Brooklyn, maneuvering through it, and just kind of like, just becoming who you are today?
Right. So for me, humble beginnings, I think that's definitely what kind of pushed me and what kind of continues to guide me to where I am now and just moving forward in general. I mean, I grew up in East New York, Brooklyn. I'm also a first-generation college student, first one in my family to go to college.
Wow, yeah.
My mother wasn't really there, you know. My dad was kind of in and out of prison. So I kind of never saw myself where I am today. Like, if someone told me I'll be here probably about 10 years ago, I'll tell them they're lying. Even 5 years ago, I'll tell them that they're lying.
Right.
So after, you know, Queensboro, for me, was like, what pushed me to college was track. Like, sports is what really did it for me and kind of had me really realize, like, okay, there's more to life. There's so much more out there for me. So me running track, playing football, and having coaches that cared and that actually spent that time with me pushed me to Queensboro. And then Queensboro, running track, I started to realize if I invested this amount of time in sports into my studies, I could really do my thing with education. And that's what got me all the way up to the college at Brockport. And from there, I started realizing the inequalities in the world. And even coming from an area where I'm used to being a majority, now I'm in a place where I'm part of the minority. And I'm like, well, this is tough. You know, the things that's done and the things that's being said kind of made me really start to look at the system from a different perspective. I'm like, okay, so this was not set up for me. From an institutional perspective, from a social perspective, I'm just like all over the place. And I started to value education even more. And that's what kind of pushed me into my master's in order for me to do the things that I want to do and make the change that I want to see in the world and occupy certain spaces. These are the things that's definitely necessary, and the knowledge as well. So.
Oh man, no, absolutely. Mark, can you kind of, you know, sound off on that or give kind of your thoughts and your expectations of, or not expectations, but, you know, kind of your thoughts on just hearing what Jermaine just said. I promise you all, it's all going to make sense because I have a wealth of questions lined up. But I just kind of want to get your thoughts on that, Mark, if you don't mind.
What do you mean, just based on?
Just based on everything he just said, yeah. Just kind of just like, you know, in regards to, you know, coming up and, you know, kind of seeing the world, you know, within a tiny scope for what it was, and then, you know, using sports to kind of get out. I feel as if like that's the narrative that usually happens to like a lot of these athletes and everyone else, right? Like it's either sports or something that kind of allows them to kind of wiggle out and kind of see, hey, oh wow, there's still stuff going out there. What do you think?
Yeah, I can totally agree with that. I mean, most of the time, you know, in our communities, the only real way out is sports, you know, maybe rapping. Maybe, you know, from there it's just basically entertainment. You know what I mean? And we don't really look at education as a serious way out. We kind of look at education as the gamble. You know what I mean? Right.
Yeah.
So I feel like, I mean, it's a beautiful thing that, you know, brothers like him are changing the narrative and showing that it is possible to build your future. You know, I mean, granted, there's a lot of roadblocks in our community that kind of hinder us from actually focusing, but if you can block all that out, it's really a beautiful thing. But, you know, not everybody has the opportunity to block that out. For sure.
No, I totally agree. Jermaine, it's interesting. Your story differs from mine's and Mark's in the sense, or at least, you know, I'm not going to speak for Mark. I'm going to speak for myself. You know, I grew up in a household where, like, you know, I'm first and foremost first generation American here in this country, but my parents are West Indian. My parents come from the island of Haiti, and like growing up, man, all I heard was school this, school that, and like if I didn't have good grades, man, my dad was popping me from like the house all the way to the parking lot. So like I had to make sure that, you know, my grades was pretty tight, whatnot. And like, you know, my dad was always telling me, go to college, go to school, you know, go get your bachelor's, get your master's. And even though I didn't really like or appreciate school as a kid because I felt as if I was institutionalized, I felt as if I was imprisoned, you know, with all the bad kids and all the other stuff that was going on, I knew that, all right, well, if I just keep working towards, you know, just getting a good education, I'm going to get out, you know. Could you talk about that a little bit? Could you talk about how if a child isn't spoken to with a lot of these affirmation things, like from their parents, like, yo, like, you know, go to school, whatever, whatnot. Could you talk about it a little bit? Because I think even in your story, you talked about, you know, your parents not even completing their high school diploma. So college wasn't even in your worldview, no?
Right. Yeah, college definitely wasn't. And I think it's tough. Like, you know, I still deal with it till today. Like, I'm in a master's program, but, you know, you still deal with that childhood trauma and, you know, wishing certain things was a certain way and it's not. But I would definitely say it's very important. For me, I never really had that home push Like my parents, when I was in maybe junior high school was always, you better have good grades, you better not come in here with this or that, or you're not getting anything for Christmas. Like I grew up with that, but it's kind of like once you graduate from high school, you made it. Like that's kind of how my family structure was really set up. Because my dad didn't finish high school, my mother didn't as well. So it was kind of like it was a thing. Like, all right, you finish high school, that's it. Because it's like they don't know what they don't know.
Right.
But also me being older, understanding it from their lens. Like I always feel like they did the best they could with what they had.
Right.
So it's kind of like if they never was at a college institution, how could they even push me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And even at this point, it's like some days I can't even call my dad and ask certain questions because he just won't understand or be able to relate with me in that way.
Wow.
Which is just, it just takes a lot. It takes a lot of me reflecting and understanding at this point. Like, okay, this is why this is like that, and we may not be able to have this conversation, but how can I help him understand some of these things and
wow.
give him that exposure? He can live through me. So
that's interesting.
But it's challenging.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's interesting because, Mark, you and I often talk about, and again, Jermaine, this is no disrespect to you, this is just in general in terms of the context, what we're saying. We usually talk about, Mark, your parents can't help you if they've never experienced what you've experienced, right? I think even in the comment section on Instagram, you've said, sometimes what happens is we have poor people advising poor people or the blind leading the blind. Mark, can you speak, can you speak to your own personal story as a counter opposing to Jermaine's? Did your parents at all make you feel by the time you were 18 that you were pretty much on your own and you had to pretty much make a decision yourself to go to college, or was college pushed to you? Like, what was your story?
Well, I feel like it was definitely, kind of pushed upon us, and, me speaking personally, it was pushed upon me growing up that, once you finish high school, you have to go to college. I mean, with some families, they feel like, college is the only way to be successful. And it's driven us to take out student loans that potentially will produce no ROI. Because we can't just say go to college just because it's the next level up. If people don't know what major to choose and they don't know how to research a major, they will fail.
Yeah.
So you can do everything right from high school all the way up. You can get straight A's, but once you go to college, you can pick the wrong major, you can do great in college, and you will fail in life. Simply because of terrible planning. So we can't just say go to college with no real strategy, because you can have 20 degrees and be broke.
Right.
Yep.
Nope. Very true. Very true indeed.
College is it's an investment, and with all investments, they say, past results are no guarantee of future returns. So just because college worked out for your mother doesn't mean it'll work out for you. This is a different economy here. Right. A lot of jobs are going to be replaced by technology and artificial intelligence. So just because, grandpa drove a bus for 30 years doesn't mean, my grandchildren can drive a bus. By then, the buses will be, driving themselves. Yeah, for sure. We can't look back and, just look at previous generations and take advice from them, because they're not in the place that we're in now. Technology is essentially taking over, most sectors in the economy. Yeah, for sure. Right. Now, I promise you, it's going to get really good, because I really want to get into the conversational part of the show, which, Mark and I usually do so well. But again, I think it was very important for the WISE community to understand humble beginnings of people such as Jermaine, to really, internalize the process of what it's like, living within, this state, within one's own life. So I wanted to push forward to this. Jermaine, if you don't mind, I'm going to take this out from the excerpt from your Forbes piece. As I reflect, I wonder, why was I so angry? But now it makes much more sense. In the process of applying to colleges, my support system was very weak, right? As mentioned prior, my parents never finished high school, so they did not push me to pursue any higher education. Many teachers throughout middle school and some in high school believed I would fall victim to the streets, gangs, incarceration, or economic isolation and become another statistic. I wasn't sure myself. Now, it's interesting because you also said here that, many men growing up in East New York, Brooklyn, where I grew up, have become a statistic of the realities of mass incarceration, drug dealing, and death before the age of 25, right? My vision was blurred by generational patterns, of uncertainty, and potential prison cells, because that was all I knew. And then also, many teachers washed their hands of me due to their biases and assumptions. Damn, that's a bar, man. Could you break all that down?
Seriously,
So,
just walk us through that. Yeah.
I would never. So there's definitely one piece that I'll never forget from my junior high school experience.
Mhm.
When I had one of the deans in the school, every morning we'd walk in and he'd play "Flashing Lights" by Kanye. Remember that song?
Yeah, man, that was hot back in the day.
Every time we walk in, he'll play "Flashing
Lights."
And then he said, "This is gonna be y'all. Y'all gonna be walking right out of here in cuffs. Y'all gonna be walking right out of here in cuffs.
Wow.
Where y'all going?" And I always will remember that, right? And I'm one of those type of people that if you tell me I can't do something, I'm definitely going to do it now, just to show you that I can do it. So that was always my motivation. Like, damn, that's how you really feel. Like, you know, like,
yeah,
you really don't know me. You're like, wow, this is what you tell a student that's in 7th, 8th grade.
That's ridiculous.
You know, and I always had a smart mouth, so I was like, wow, so this is what you tell your children? So it's like, that really had a huge impact.
Yeah.
And then going through that junior high school process, and then you get to high school, and then there's some teachers who wouldn't even give you the time of day. And it's kind of like, he won't make it. He'd be dead like that other person. You know, like even the night of my graduation, I lost one of my close friends. He had died in Brooklyn.
Wow.
From a stabbing, right? And then it's like, there's teachers who was like, well, I knew that was going to happen.
Dang.
I'm surprised you made it, right? And so even when I went to Queensboro, there was a teacher in my high school who was like, oh, he only went to a community college. What's that? He won't get a degree past that. So those are the things that I will always remember.
Wow.
And you know, so those are the things that keeps me going. Because it's like, what about the other students? You know, so I have been blessed with so many opportunities at this point to make it this far. And I wouldn't have done this without mentors and without my uncle, without having people in my life that actually spent time because they cared. Like my global teacher from high school is my big bro still today. You know, like he comes to every graduation, haven't missed one since then.
Is he African American?
All the time, of course.
Oh, excellent. That's dope.
You know, so like great brother.
Right.
Great brother, we speak all the time, man. And it's like it's those type of teachers who really put in the time, who's really dedicated to the children, and that's what I wanted. You know, that's what motivates me to even be in education. It's people like that. And if I had that type of support from junior high school, how could my life have been different? Because even when I was studying for the SATs, I'm not the best standardized test taker, and I know that. That's not really my strength.
Yeah.
And I didn't have people tell me like, okay, so you're gonna fail the SATs and end up at a community college, or not even go to college. What are you doing? Like, whoa. You know, like, how do you really sit down and help me really get through this thing?
Right. It's interesting. You know, everything you just said just now, I could attest to because, you know, for the past 2 years, I've taught as a middle school 7th and 8th grade teacher in Hartford, Connecticut, here in Hartford, where I currently live. And I did it through the Teach for America program because I was trying to find something. You know, my end goal obviously was always to become a college professor, but I kind of wanted a starting point and launching pad. So I said, you know what, let me go this route. And it's crazy because, you know, every single year, you know, in terms of like graduation, when my 8th graders graduate, I always pull all my boys aside. All my boys, I pull them aside and I give them a pep talk. I'm like, yo, like, you are great. You could become anything you want to in this life. Anything you want to in this life is yours, and you can go out there and you can attain it. But you just got to stay focused. You got to be wary of all the friends that will, you know, bring you down and will distract you from your prize. And you just got to stay focused. And then I would even go as far as ripping out a piece of paper, giving the kids my number, and as well as email and say like, yo, even if you got to call me up middle of the night, something happened, yo, hit me up. I'm there to talk to you. I'm there to help you out in the midst of your troubles because I don't want to see you go down this path. You have such a bright future. And what I've noticed is that a lot of the boys, they really listen to me when I say that to them. And, you know, I always give them a pound, I give them a dap, and I always look at these boys and I'm like, yo, I love you. And then it's kind of crazy because they look at me and they're just like, yo, I love you too. And I'm like, dang, I actually got a I love you out of them. Not expecting that would be the case, but it's just like, yo, like, This is the kind of love that these young men need in their lives. It starts at 11, 12, 13, 14 because middle school is such a critical time. You know, like, I'm not going to lie to you. Like, even just now, a couple of months ago, a former coworker who I used to work with, she texted me about a young man that I had as a student. Yo, when I tell you this kid was brilliant, he was brilliant. really smart basketball, basketball star, I'm saying, on the team doing his thing, and he went to high school, and then I think recently, as of like a month and a half, 2 months ago, he got involved in a shootout, a 2-on-2 shootout, I'm saying, in a passing car. I think he was either driving, whatever, whatnot, and then the car itself struck a woman as they were trying to get out, and then kept going. So he, being a minor, he's 16. They locked him up, whatever, whatnot, and I think the other 2-3, they fled on foot. So they're suspects. They're still trying to find them. But the thing that hurts my heart is that, I spoke to this kid, you know what I'm saying? I told him I expected great things for him. Like it literally just like ripped my heart out, because it's like, oh my gosh, bro, all that work that went into talking to him, I just couldn't believe it. I was like, oh gosh, I was like, this is what we're trying to avoid, you know what I'm saying? But like, we need more people such as myself. We need more people such as Jermaine, who are going into the field of education to be a form of leadership for these young men, because as of currently, black men only make up 2 or 3% of the teaching population nationally in this country. What do you guys think of that? Mark, I'll let you go first, and then I'll let you go, Jermaine, and then we'll go into the questions.
Yeah, definitely, bro. I can see what you're saying, because I mean, it all comes down to having a role model, having someone to emulate, and we've always heard the saying that only a man can raise a man. So we've got a lot of single mothers raising their boys, and they do a wonderful job. But this young boy is not going to try to emulate his mother. He's going to try to emulate the next man that he sees, maybe on the street or in the school or wherever. So it really is a crucial piece of their lives just to have a role model of their gender, just because it gives them someone to model themselves after, or to learn what to do and what not to do.
Yeah.
So it really is important, man. But just great stuff, man. Great stuff what you guys are doing. For
sure. Jermaine.
I totally agree, like 110 with both of you said. Mentorship, I really feel like the mentorship is so important. And not only the mentorship, but actually having a mentor that looks just like you. So it's like, oh wow, this brother is actually a doctor. This brother is actually a teacher or a lawyer. Like, this is someone that I can relate to. And I can have a different type of conversation with them, because they're going to go through similar challenges, or they have been through similar challenges that I'm going to go through, just based off of how I look or where I come from.
Absolutely.
So I feel like it's so important to have that connection. And especially even me being in the master's program now, right? So it's kind of like, how do I constantly look for other brothers who are mentors? That's in these spaces, I have been in these spaces, to continue to guide me and push me.
Right.
So, and sometimes it's tough. Sometimes it's tough, because not a lot.
Yeah,
so
you're right. No, I agree 100%. It's interesting, because like, I mean, my kids, they know me by now, but like, prior to getting to know me, I'm sure they were looking at me like, yo, who's this square, right? But like, it's so funny, because the first day of every school year, I always make it important to, share who I am with the kids, let them know where I'm from, whatever, whatnot, what I'm saying? And then, so for me, when I tell my kids I'm from New York, they're like, oh, what part you from? You from Brooklyn? I'm like, nah, I'm from Queens, but, I was born in Brooklyn, though. They're like, whatever. So, but it's interesting, because I'm also a poet. I'm a hip-hop poet. So I always spit something for them, what I'm saying? I always spit, a piece of my poetry for them. And, like, my poetry goes into cadence in terms of rhymes and bars, like hip-hop, like rap. And so when they hear it, they're like, oh, wow, that was really fire. And like, they just like, they move to it. And so like, now when like other people are coming into the school to to run a hip hop program or whatever, whatnot, they look at those people, they're like, yo, but can you go bar for bar with Mr. Anglade though? Can you out rap Mr. Anglade? I'm like, guys, chill. I'm not a rapper, I'm a poet. They're like, well, it sounds like hip hop, so same thing. But it's interesting, because it's like, now, when people come in, they're looking at you as a point of reference now. They're like, but are you better than Mr. Anglade though, whatever, whatnot? What I'm saying? So it makes you feel good, because it's like, oh wow, like, these kids really look up to you. And so, even for me, man, when I was at my past school that I was teaching at, the middle school, I took it upon myself, man, to coach. The school came up to me, they're like, hey, have you ever coached basketball before? I'm like, nah, I've played basketball before, and I love basketball, but I've never coached. They're like, yeah, but well, we're looking for a coach right now. If not, we're not gonna have a team this year. And I told myself, you know what, I'm gonna do it, because I'm gonna tell you like this, Jermaine. I feel like the more you take the initiative to work with the kids and show them that you care, the more it does for their mental, their intellectual development, their emotional development. Because let's be honest, there's a lot of these teachers at 3:25, 3:30, as soon as that bell ring, they got their bags and they're leaving right behind the kids. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, I think it does something when the kids see that their teacher is staying back after school with them, running practices, traveling with them, going to their games, coming back, doing this, doing that. And it shows like, oh wow, this guy really has a real investment. And I think somebody said it, I forgot who, but I think when my first year I started teaching, someone said something along the lines that they said, it doesn't matter how young these kids are. They may be 11, 12, 13, but these kids can sense which teachers are real, which teachers are fake. And I never forgot that. I'm like, you know what? That's really true. Like if you're really a real genuine person, whether male or female, kids can sense that. Kids can sense that, excellent. Go ahead. No, go ahead. Expound. Mm-hmm.
So one of the points you made earlier too, you said the students had said something. You told me from Queens, and they say, "Oh, are you from Brooklyn?" And also, I think it's so interesting sometimes. Even where I'm working at now, I work with a lot of undergraduate students at college, and they'll walk in and they assume that I probably grew up in like Midtown Manhattan, or somewhere like I grew up and I was raised as a preppy kid because I show up and I'm in a suit, and I'm here. Yeah. And I'm speaking a certain way and I have a degree. Right. So that idea is like where we even get this narrative from.
Yeah.
And what's our idea of like, so you assuming that someone that looks just like you, that comes from a place that you came from, can't be sitting here in a suit with a degree and a job. So those things is some of the things too, is like, how do we combat that, right? So
right.
I sit down with my students. I had one student.
Absolutely. No, for sure. I totally.
Grew up, like in New York City my whole life. I just been over there, and he's like, "Oh wow, I never knew." Yes, but it's those notions is like, you assume that I wouldn't be able to relate or understand because I'm dressed a certain way.
Yeah.
So those are things that also,
No.
That's very true.
Yeah, I totally agree, for sure. So, gentlemen, I want to start, with our questions and kind of get this moving into our second segment today, which is called Break Generational Patterns. All right. So our first was Humble Beginnings, but the second one, our second segment is called Break Generational Patterns. And I plucked this right out of Jermaine's op-ed, so I don't call it original, but here we go. All right. So the first question here is Jermaine, I'm actually let you start off, and then Mark, you can counter what Jermaine says afterwards. So the first question here is, why do you think we as African Americans fall into these holding patterns in which we think that we all are facing the same fate? So I'm going to say it again. Why do you think we as African Americans fall into these holding patterns in which we think that we all are facing the same fate? So I'm going to, again, pull from Jermaine's article here where it says many men growing up in East New York, Brooklyn, have become a statistic of the realities of mass incarceration, drug dealing, and death before the age of 25, right? A lot of these young men, or women as well, don't think they're going to make it out. So why do you think we as African Americans fall into these holding patterns in which we think that we all are facing the same fate? Jermaine?
I think it's definitely environment. I think sometimes environment has a lot to do with it. And I had said this to somebody before too. So if I'm coming outside and I know about maybe 5 drug dealers on the corner because they watched me grow up, right? I'm going to school with a few people that's gangbanging. But where's that positive reinforcement showing me what I can be or showing me what's out there for me? Because even when I got to college, I'm like, wow, there's a chief of communications position, there's a chief of diversity position. These are not some of the things that's kind of put into your head. It's like, oh yeah, you could be a lawyer, you could be a doctor, you could be a cop, but they never tell you what that's like.
Right.
They never tell you, you have to go to law school after you get your bachelor's degree, like, or these are the things that you're right. Said, but it's just like, it's just thrown around so easily. But you really don't see it. And when you do see it, is it usually someone that looked like you or someone that came from this community? No. And then there's some people, and I have had teachers who haven't accomplished those things, so they're assuming that I can. And I have teachers now, when I go back to the school and visit some, they're like, I can't believe he's doing that.
Wow.
I can't believe he did this, and I never did that. So it's like, and that's why I say so. It's definitely an environment and the things that's in it and the things that you see, you know, because it has a cumulative impact.
Well,
so if that's all you know,
keep going.
Like, if that's all you know, and then you turn on the TV, everything we do as a community is always negative. There's not a lot of positive things on the TV.
Right.
Everybody want to be a rapper, so you thinking your only way out is maybe rap.
Yeah.
Or, I'm gonna go crazy with football, get this scholarship and go to the NFL or basketball. Those are the things I feel like it's just pushed in our community.
Yeah.
Constantly.
Yeah. Jermaine, I kind of want you to expound upon that a little bit more. I think you touched on something so prevalent and important when you said that, you know, if, you know, in regards to your teachers, like, you know, there's a lot of things that they haven't accomplished. So it's like, what do I think that this young man who comes from this type of neighborhood is going to accomplish that? That's very interesting.
Right. I mean, and that's from my personal experience. I always felt like that. Even now when I have conversations with certain people, it's like, oh, wow, you said you're in the master's program? Oh, where? You know, and studying what? What you going to do with that? So it's like, it's just those things go to show, like, wow, okay.
Yeah.
You really thought I wouldn't be able to accomplish these things. Or, you know, you didn't do it, so you put that on me because you're thinking I wasn't able to do it because you wasn't. So those things also have an impact. And these are some of the people that sit in these classrooms teaching our students.
Damn.
In our community.
Yeah, for sure. Mark, same question. Why do you think we as African Americans fall into these holding patterns?
I totally agree with this, brother, because it's the lack of mentors. It's the lack of professional and, you know, respectable people around us. Because if you're surrounded with nothing but negativity, you're going to think that that's your fate. Mm-hmm. Like it's you know, it's you're damned to be poor. You're damned to be, you know, unsuccessful. And it even comes down to, even in the college world. I mean, I remember when I first went to school and I changed my major to business because that's part of my passion, something that I'm really serious about. And I went into the class, it was Business 101 or something like that. So he finished his lesson, and, you know, of course I took my notes, I did what I had to do. But at the end of the class, I asked him, you know, what kind of business do you own? You know, this is a business class. This is, you know, the concentration on the major is entrepreneurship, and he told me he had never owned a business. Well, what the hell are you doing teaching me business? What's out of that class? It makes no sense. So basically, you're telling me you're teaching me business when you've never done it.
Yeah.
I can't learn from you then, man. You have nothing to tell me. You can read from a textbook.
Right.
And that's crushing to someone as well, because now I have someone unsuccessful teaching me how to be successful. That sounds stupid. That doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
We need mentors with actual success, not people that are reading the textbook, because that's going to make me feel like it's impossible.
What do you think about that, Jermaine?
All he's doing is he's just certifying me to do the same thing he's doing. Teach in front of a class, and, you know, basically, he's perpetrating a fraud at that point.
That's actually a good segment, and I actually just came up with this on the spot, but I think this is actually a good segue into it. What do you think about that, Jermaine? Do you think we can actually take advice or take action from people that haven't practiced theory in practicality?
I mean, I think, I definitely agree. Experience is the best, you know, teacher. If you've been there and, you know, you lived through it, it is definitely, I think it's a different approach than just reading something.
Yeah.
And having an experience. Like, it's just different.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, even when I was, like, my undergrad degree was in education as well, with a concentration in working with students that have disabilities, right? So I could sit in the classroom and read all of this stuff, but there's nothing like that field work.
Yeah.
It's nothing like it.
Yeah.
It gives you experiences and like real life, like feelings that a textbook cannot give you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, excellent. So, Mark, I'm actually going to have you start off first, and then Jermaine, you will get the say afterwards with this next question. Do we think that our communities give us a limited scope of what we think the world is? So let me ask the question again. Let me expound upon it, or reframe it. Do we think that our communities give us a limited scope of what we think the world is? So again, going back to Jermaine's story, like if I've only navigated, walking through the streets of East New York, right, or Crown Heights, or even Brownsville, Brooklyn, and I don't get out much. I haven't even gone as far as New Rochelle, New York, or Albany, or even to New Jersey. Does that limit our scope and our worldview of what we think the world is? Because I know me personally, man, when I got a chance to step out of here and go to Ghana the first time a year and a half ago for a teaching program in Africa, I couldn't believe it. I was like, man, I'm in Ghana. There's a whole different form of civilization and culture out here than in America, man. Right. So what do you think about that, Jermaine? Do you think that our communities give us a limited scope of what we think the world is, especially as young men of color?
I definitely agree with that again, 110. Because once again, what helped me was that exposure, right? Because when you run in track, you're traveling throughout the state, and sometimes throughout the nation to different colleges to compete, and different high schools to compete. So that right there kind of is like, whoa, this is something I saw in the movie, or this is something I saw for someone else, but not me. And kind of like seeing those things made me realize that no, I can do this. This is for me, right? Like and it's so real, like when I'm having conversations with certain students and even like people I went to college with, and it's like, bro, I've never been on a plane before. I never left the Bronx. I never left New York State. And It's like, wow. And there's a world way bigger than you and just the city out there, right? And you say you had went to Ghana. I just recently came back to Gambia. Yeah. And those experiences make you think about things that you never even thought about, right? Like I came back from Gambia and I had all the lights off in my house. It's like, well, I'm turning on the lights for it's light outside. Like just those things, you start appreciating the littlest things.
So much more.
And it's like, why am I sitting here eating so much food and I'm not really that hungry? But there's people, like, how do we preserve these things? So it really just opened up your mind and just make you think about so much more things outside of yourself and outside of your community. And then it has you reflect on, okay, how can we get better? Right. And like, what are we doing that's getting in our way too?
Yeah.
So I would definitely say.
No, go ahead. No, go ahead. No, finish your thought, man.
So I would definitely say, I would definitely have to agree with what you said, man. Like even sometimes when I talk to my dad, it's like, what's funny? Last night I saw my dad and we was talking, and I was like, because I'm in the city now, I'm on break. Yeah. So I told him I'm going to Dykeman to a little lounge, and he was like, dude, we from the East. You going too far, man. You got to stay in the hood. What are you doing? You going to other hoods. And I'm just like, damn, bro. Like, we're in a different space now. It's a different day and age.
Right.
Your son is a professional. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can go to Dykeman and have a drink. It's okay. Like, relax.
Yeah.
But once again, it's like, that exposure, that experience, that getting outside of your comfort zone and just traveling around.
Yeah, man. Wow. That's interesting. I kind of, even want to touch back on the point you brought up in regards to lights and in terms of living in staying in Gambia when you had the chance, because when I was in Ghana, man, the lights would go out it was a natural occurrence. The lights would go at least twice a day. You lose electricity. So I was just like, man, like sometimes I'd be sleeping at night, then I'm like, man, why am I so hot? And then I wake up in the middle of the night and I'm like, oh man, the power went out. Oh crap. Okay, I guess I gotta just deal with it. And then like, Mark, I know you haven't gotten a chance to travel outside of this country in terms of Africa yet. I'm sure you've done a lot of traveling, but I'm speaking in terms of Africa specifically, bro. And Jermaine, I'm sure you can attest to this. When you go to the continent of Africa, bro, people are just so happy. They're just so content with the littlest of things. I haven't been to Gambia, but in Ghana, the women, walking around with their baskets on their heads. They have their babies on their backs, and they're just so happy, smiling in the streets, selling food and products as merchants and all of this stuff, walking through the dirt paved roads or whatnot. And like everyone's just living, in conjunction with each other, from the people, the children, the goats, the chickens, like everybody just chilling out there, man. And it's just such a beautiful thing to see. Like I'm big on running myself, and like I remember while I was out there, man, I would just always like run. Like every time we got back from the schools that we were volunteering at, I would always change into my running gear and I would run up the hills and just kind of look at the village of Takoradi, Ghana itself, and just kind of just like stand on a huge boulder or rock and just kind of just like survey down. And I remember my theme music, or like the songs or the soundtrack to my trip every time I'd run around that time was Kanye West and Kid Cudi's Kids See Ghosts. I'd listen to that song all the time, and like there was a specific line where Most Def, he's featured on the song, and he's like, civilization without society, and I was just like, wow. And I'm looking at all the people, like literally, like from an aerial view, and he's like, spaces and places, civilization without society, just spaces and places. And I'm looking at the people, I'm looking at the kids rolling tires on the ground for fun, whatever, whatnot, and I'm like, yo, this is life right here. Like, this is civilization without society. Like, society is man-made. Society is a structure that man has put together and has fabricated for our own existence, whether in regards to, stores and materialism and consuming products, buying Jordans, buying clothes. But here you are in Africa, and you got people in a civilization, not a society. Like, they're going out for treks to get water every day to bring water back home. They're bringing bananas back home. It's just like, man, I can go on and on about that, and this podcast isn't about that for today, but it's just amazing. Like, don't you think, Jermaine?
And I mean, even to that point, like me being there, I had someone back home. I had them Western Union me like $300, right?
Mm-hmm.
American money, right?
Yeah.
$300 here, it's like, I think it was like $1,500, or, like a few thousands there.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, think about how much. It made me just reflect on how much money that is wasted. Like,
yeah.
Just on like a $500 pair of sneakers when that could really feed a whole village.
Seriously.
For a few months.
Right.
For a few months. Just $100 could feed a village for a few months, man.
Yeah.
So having those experiences have you really just thinking different, wanting to maneuver different through the world.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was a real eye opener, right? And
yeah.
and just to bring it back to your original question, and when we spoke about environment in our communities and how, I think that has a huge impact, because I was there and I'm like, wow, this is crazy, right? And then I came back. I'm back for a month. I came back for like a month, and I was still like lights off, I'm saving.
Yeah.
And now it's kind of like, all right, let me run and buy this. But I'm back in the environment.
Yeah.
And I still have to take, responsibility for that, right?
Right.
Because if I'm committed to that, then I need to stick with it. But once again, I'm back in an environment that's encouraging me to do those types of things as well.
Absolutely.
Because if I was in Gambia, I wouldn't be thinking about going to buy any Jordans or any Giuseppe's. Like, that would not be on my mind.
Oh my gosh, Jermaine, when I was in Ghana, you know how hard it was for me not being able to access the gram and see what was going on or to post a picture? I was like, are you serious? You mean to tell me I gotta wait for 3 weeks for 21 days, bro, when I leave this program, so that way I could go, like, post and share my experiences? But it humbled me so much. I was like, wow, like, people are living within the moment here. People are not taking photos and capturing the moments in real, like in the moment. Like, people are living in real time, and they're fellowshipping together as brothers and sisters. Yeah, I feel as if we were just a little bit like just ranting about that a little bit. Mark, I didn't forget you, bro. Mark, you there, Mark? Mark, yeah, Mark, same for you, man. Do you think that our communities give us a limited scope of what we think the world is, especially as African Americans in these major metropolitan cities?
Well, I would say definitely, because a lack of resources is always going to restrict your movements.
Mm-hmm.
So, people in a certain neighborhood, all they're going to know is that neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, they really can't, they don't know any better to want more for themselves, because all they know is that block or that hood.
Mm-hmm.
And in some communities, you can't venture off into different blocks and areas, because that would be considered deadly.
Yeah.
So it was, I forgot the statistic, but there was it was something regarding it was a city in California,
mm-hmm.
and it said about, I think it was 80 or 90% of the males never leave a 5-block radius from the time they're born to the time they die.
Mm.
Wow.
Was it South Central LA? Because I think I read something about that too.
I think it was, but I think it was a bit more specific on the exact name of the area. But we can grab that later. But it was just so interesting that they don't leave. I think it's at a 5 or 10 block radius.
Mm.
They never explore, just because they have the loyalty to their hood, the lack of resources. I can't leave. I don't have the money. My gang needs me, stuff like that. And it's just amazing how you can sometimes put the handcuffs on yourself, or your parents can put the handcuffs on you.
Right. And
even like you just said, brother, when you said your dad was like, why are you going so far out? It's like that was his mentality, because he was probably thinking towards survival.
Yeah.
But you're living a different lifestyle, so it was just like a was like a shift there, and that was really interesting.
Yeah, I agree. Jermaine, it sounded as if you were going to say something to Mark's point. Were you going to add to that?
I was going to, and I think I lost my point.
Oh man, dang. No, it's all good. If you remember over the next few seconds, as I'm trying to kind of like segue everything, please be sure to cut me off. But yeah, guys, this is really, really good. How y'all doing over there? Y'all okay? I got a couple of questions left though.
Oh yeah. All right. So it just came to me.
Excellent. See, that's the art of stalling. Go ahead, man.
So when he was saying about like the 5 or 10 block radius, people being loyal to the hood or to their block, right? For me, I always think about like, how is this? Like, think about how this is passed down generationally, right? And it's like we loyal to blocks that we don't own. We loyal to buildings that's not ours.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like, where's the room to start having these conversations? You loyal to something you do not own. Like, it's crazy, right? But it took for me to kind of get to this point to start thinking like that, looking at other things and different perspectives. You know what I'm saying? Even with like housing and home ownership, like those are the things that I'm looking into now, and it has me looking at things very differently.
Oh man, Mark.
That was on my mind.
Yeah. Well, Mark likes that kind of talk because Mark is really into real estate and buying up property. So Mark likes the sound of that. He's like, okay. Oh man.
Yeah, you're definitely right, man. When it comes to just us being loyal to these areas, and the thing that really gets me angry. I'm glad you said that, though. When our people they get so mad when they hear about gentrification, and it's like, you don't own anything in this neighborhood. What are you mad about gentrification for? People coming in your neighborhood and buying property. It was never your property to begin with, and if it was your property, you shouldn't have sold it to them.
Yeah.
You can't be angry if people moving into a neighborhood to revitalize it if you own nothing in that neighborhood. It's crazy.
Right. And I mean, what I would say to that, though, and some of the things to consider, is the lack of access, the lack of knowledge, and the lack of opportunities for people to own these things, right? And it's like, how do you make sure that information is out there to teach people, educate them on how to own a home, how to own a community and buy the block, and how do you gain access to those resources that you need to do those things? It's so much more, but I definitely get it. Get it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, at the same time, we can't. I mean, not we. I'm not going to say we, but the government isn't going to ensure that everybody gains financial literacy. It's not in their best interest that everybody gets rich. It's just to keep the rich and everybody else is pretty much struggling to get by and just consuming.
And that's why we're here, brother.
Yep, absolutely.
And that's why we're here. We definitely to share that knowledge, to provide those access and opportunities to people in our community.
Yeah.
That's definitely
exactly. But at the same time, I think you can put the information out there, but people have to be hungry for it to actually receive it. You know what I mean? If you try to teach someone that doesn't want to learn, it's just going to fall on deaf ears. So it really,
that's 110.
Yeah, it's tricky. You can't save everybody.
Yeah,
unfortunately,
you can't. Yeah, unfortunately, you really can't. Nah, man, that's really, really, really excellent. Oh gosh, this stuff is really, really good. I like where we're going with this. Okay, so as we segue into our third question of this break generational pattern segment, I wanted to bring up very, very briefly, because I really want to ask the question, but I want to bring up the story of a young man by the name of Davion Powell. Mark, I sent you this story yesterday via the New York Times. So I don't know if you heard of this story, Jermaine. This young man by the name of Davion Powell, he lost his life back in the spring in Brooklyn. He was from, if I'm not mistaken, not East New York, Crown Heights, Brooklyn. An 18-year-old young man. He was trying to escape Brooklyn's gang violence. He was caught up with his affiliation with the Bloods gang, and so Davion Powell and his young girlfriend of 19 years of age, they had 2 children, 2 boys, and she used to come up during the summers to New York, to Brooklyn from North Carolina to stay with her grandparents, and he met her because she lived her grandparents lived in the same neighborhood in Crown Heights, and so they would often get together, and then they ended up having 2 kids, and he was a part of this he was a part of this program, this nonprofit program called SOS, where they would feed the homeless, they would give out turkeys during Thanksgiving. They do a lot of great things for the community. And his mentor in the program, I'm gonna shout him out even though I don't know him, Dr. Mohammed Sargis, really had a very close hand on Davion and making sure that he graduated high school first and foremost, and started looking to apply to colleges in order to make it out. And so when he had his children, Dr. Mohammed Sargis told him that you need to get out of New York. If your girl is spending 85% of her time living in North Carolina, you need to move down there and go find colleges down there. Like, you need to escape this culture, because you're going to always be intertwined and revolving around the gangs and doing whatever it is that they're doing. So he moved down there, right? And I kind of quickly want to get to the point because I don't want to harp on this too long. He moved down there to live with her. They had their kids. And I think, she started going to school. And then what happened was they were living with her family, but then they got evicted. So it kind of goes back to what we were talking about in terms of us not owning property, right? They got evicted, and not only did they get evicted, her family, but the landlord didn't even provide them with the security deposit that they had used, so they couldn't even secure another apartment. So they ended up moving up back to New York. So she stayed with her grandparents. He ended up going back to the projects in which he stayed at in Crown Heights. And when he got back, he realized that even though he had only been gone 9 months, they started revamping the projects. Like, it started just getting changed and everything, and he couldn't believe it. So he was like, all right, well, I do want to go to school. I almost went to school in North Carolina, but that's not happening right now. So what can I do? So he started working at 7-Eleven. He got his transcripts from his old Brooklyn high school. And then apparently, I guess, one of his friends got into a scuffle. Clevens Valson, he got killed on Flatbush. He got gunned down. So Davion went to the stoop where his friend used to hang out and encountered the gang that had something to do with it or that was connected to it. And he, I guess he fought. He got into a scuffle and he fought one of them. So eventually, what happened was they set him up, and then eventually down the line, he ended up getting gunned down. And it's crazy because we hear about these stories every single day, right? This young man was only 18, 19 with 2 kids, 7-Eleven, working at 7-Eleven, just trying to make a better way for himself, and was possibly hoping to get into college. And I think now his girlfriend is currently going to school at BMCC. But I say all this to segue into my next question. Are there ways in which we as black men can help bring about solutions or provide some form of mentorship to the next generation of kids dealing with these systemic issues and the stories similar to Davion Powell? Because even Mr. Mohammed Sargis said that he was scared and he was frightened the moment he heard that Davion was back in town. He was fearful because he said, man, if Davion's back in town, there's no way that I can protect him and watch over him 24/7 in order to ensure that he'll be out of trouble, because the trouble's all around you, So I'm going to start with Jermaine once again. Are there ways in which we as black men can help bring about solutions or provide mentorship for the next generation of kids?
I think there are. But I think we have to understand them first, so we can begin to have the right conversation. Because I feel like there is a lot of work being done. There's a lot of brothers out there working. There's a lot of brothers mentoring, but are we having the right conversation and understanding some of the students' realities and just realities of other people in our community? And in that situation right there, right? It's like those unwritten rules of the hood.
Yeah.
Feeling like you owe somebody your life, right? Feeling like you owe somebody loyalty, so you're willing to risk everything you just work for the street code or for the bro code.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So now you have 2 kids, you're in college, you got everything going for you, and now your boy just got punched in the face, and now it's the unwritten rule of the hood. It's just time to ride out. And it's like, how do we get it? And how do we dismantle those things, right? And even me being in Queensboro, those are things that I had to learn. Like, dude, I'm in a different space. And how do you surround yourself with people that want you to do great, that's not going to call you when they get punched in their face because they know you're going to come, and you have too much to lose, so they're not going to put you in that position.
Yeah.
So for me, I think it's definitely how do we dismantle those unwritten rules of the race.
Yeah.
Which is tough, but
it's tough.
It's work to be done.
There's a lot of work to be done. Mark, your thoughts, bro?
Yeah, bro, it's really a tough one. I mean, I don't believe it can be dismantled. It's a structure in place. I mean, one man can't go in and you know, really break down this gang culture or this
right.
You know, just it's impossible. It's like these people aren't, you know, doing all of this for fun. They're doing it to survive. You know, they
right.
organizations to their families essentially. So it's like for them to stop that,
yeah.
I don't think they won't see the reason for it. It's like, give me a reason to stop. I'm feeding my family.
Yeah.
Criminal record. Oh no, you can get a job here. Oh, you can't. You're a murderer. You know what I mean? It's like these people are doing all they can to feed their family, and they're doing it by any means necessary.
Mm-hmm.
And if we were in a similar position, we'd probably be doing the same.
Yeah.
Just not because we're weak, but because we're doing all we have to do to feed our families. And it's because they were born into this military-like environment where it's kill or be killed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So if I'm born into this,
I agree with you.
Yeah, it's crazy because if my dad is a gangster, my grandpa's a gangster, my great-grandpa's a gangster, what am I going to be? You know what I mean? I'm not going to be a chef. So, it's a tough one, man.
Yeah.
They're looking at you like, so it's almost like having a military family where they put pressure on when you're going to join. Same thing, and it's a matter of survival.
And you know what?
I really don't think one man can step in and say, let's all make peace. These people are killing each other over money, you know, and over, you know, territory.
Yeah.
I mean, that's done in business right now. It's real business. You know, I'm not necessarily people getting killed, but people getting, you know, sued or just it's a war in business, it's war on the streets, it's war everywhere.
Yeah.
Which one do you have access to?
You know what's interesting? I'm going to throw this curveball question to you both. This is an additional question that came out of the necessity of what you guys are talking about, and also a curveball question in the sense of what, in the perspective of the article itself too. It actually comes from the article, or at least the idea of the question. So Mr. Muhammad Sargis, the young man, you know, God rest his soul, Davion Powell's mentor, said that he said that what happens usually is that, you know, with programs such as SOS and these other nonprofits that are trying to help at-risk youth, what usually happens is that the ones that are in dire need of help, the young men that are usually in dire need of help, or the ones that are pretty much doing well for themselves, are the ones that get a lot of support and focus, because if they're doing really well, then they obviously want to keep that perpetuating and going. And if they're doing really terrible, they're trying to dismantle or disrupt the pattern of their behaviors and their nature in order to change who they are. But it's the kids like Davion Powell who end up, you know, kind of in the middle, who usually end up backtracking, and the bad things usually happen to the most. Like, in a sense of, like, you know, him kind of getting himself together a little bit and then moving down to North Carolina and thinking everything is solved. But then, you know, when the money, you know, when the money slow up and, you know, things start to happen or you get evicted, then it's just like, dang, where am I going to go? I'm going to head back up to the city of bright lights. I'm going to head back up to New York, or I'm going to head back to, you know, Compton, California, or South Central LA, or Watts, or wherever the place may be. You know what I'm saying? Even though you try to escape and get away. And then from there, you know, that's usually what ends up happening. But I don't know, man. I think it's really, really just difficult in general. But hold on one sec. I'm trying to get my thoughts together on this. Jermaine, if you don't mind me asking you, what are your thoughts on that? Like, do you think it's the kids in the middle who kind of like are kind of like, you know, not moving in place, kind of trying to figure it out, trying to go up, you know, but not really going down either, that usually end up getting lost? Do you agree with Mr. Muhammad in this sense, or what are your thoughts on that?
I'm not too sure. Like, you know, I don't. From my experience, I'm not big on grouping all students. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
this low or this middle, or they're more at risk than this person.
Yeah.
You never know what a person's truly going through. Right. You never know what a person is truly involved in.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, how do we kind of support these students equally and give them the same amount of love and attention and opportunity, and and then like you kind of plant the seed and then watch it grow.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's good.
Definitely.
Mark, what do you think? So again, do you believe that there should be again, because I was going back to the article, right, and I'm just I was saying that Mr. Muhammad said that it's usually the kids in the middle that kind of get stuck. When they're focusing on the kids who are at the worst of the worst, and with the kids that are doing the best, they want to keep that going. That the kids who are kind of stuck and running in place are the ones who kind of get forgotten about, and then the tragic situations arise and end up happening to them. What do you think? Do you agree? Because Jermaine doesn't think so.
Yeah, definitely. I can totally agree with that, and pretty much here's why. Like when it comes to poor communities, I feel like they're surrounded by negativity. So the chances of them actually, moving forward with things like, let's say, higher education and these different opportunities that are available to us is very slim. But people in the middle of the pack, they actually have people telling them, go to college, get your degree, you'll get a good job. They have people in their ears spreading these ideas that are not always in their best interest and are not always the right way to go. Because like I said, the middle class is still considered poor in this country.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because, the 1% holds almost, 60% of the wealth in the country?
Mm-hmm.
I may be wrong with that. But when you have something like that, that means middle class are just poor people with a little bit of opportunity.
Yeah.
So you still have the poor people, you still have the poor leading the poor. So now we have people in our ears saying, oh, it's okay to take out a student loan. You'll be able to pay it back when you get a job. That doesn't always work out. And now we have $1.5 trillion in student debt, all because people had great ideas and thought that college was the answer.
Yeah.
College is your savior.
Mm-hmm.
In the middle class, college is your savior.
Yeah.
In the poor communities, maybe basketball or rapping is your savior.
Mm-hmm. Oh, dang. I never thought about it that way.
But what I...
Basketball and rapping gets you to debt, though. That's the thing. College gets you into debt. Look, college has ramifications on your student debt has ramifications on your future.
Right.
So it's like when you have someone talking you into things that have financial ramifications, you have people suffering from the decisions they made at 18, 25 years down the line. If you have $100K worth of student loan debt and your major didn't pay off the way grandma told you it would, you have a problem. If you're a rapper for 10 years and your rap career doesn't work out, there is no debt associated with that. And with student debt, it's non-bankruptable. I believe they have the, if you pay 25 years, 30 years, they'll erase it, but that's a long time. And it's not bankruptable. I believe the only way to get out of a student loan is if you're rendered incapable of working. So, essentially, you may have to lose your arms and legs. I'm just saying. I'm being serious.
Jermaine.
What I would say to that, though.
Yeah, what were you going to say, Jermaine? Yeah.
What I would say, though, I'm big on how do you invest in yourself, right? So I do understand that when you go into college, sometimes a lot of us take on a lot of debt. That is very true. And some people may spend their life paying that debt off, right? But we'll take out money to buy a house. We'll go finance or lease a car. So we're not going to invest that money into our education. That puts us in a position to earn more, to live a better, I think it depends on how you work it as well, right? So when we talk about exposure, right, how do we give our students a plan, a blueprint? Because if some students, it's how you make it work for you. Because I wasn't always the most fortunate, right? But now I'm blessed with so many opportunities because I work hard. And I started learning things as I was going along, like, okay, let me secure this internship here, which will give me experience in this and give me an opportunity to meet some people and learn some things that have put me in a different position. And sometimes that come with sacrifices that some of our students may not even be able to make because they're trying to pay for they're in college, now they're working full time maybe at a fast food or retail just to get through college, so they don't even have the privilege of taking an internship because either it's no pay or it's little pay, and they're on their own because they're independent students. So I feel like it's so many things to factor in, right? So it's like, okay, a student is passionate about their higher education and this is what they want to do, but how do we talk about, once again, getting these students through effectively and the systemic issues that go along with those things? And I feel like it's not that simplistic, even though I do understand that student debt is crazy, but I would say it's a huge investment into yourself, right? And then how do we prepare our students for scholarships that covers all of that student debt? Now they're getting a free ride. And
everybody,
instead of, you know, and I
ride, my brother.
Listen, everybody can't, but those opportunities are there. So for the ones that can get them, why not help them get them? It's because it's there. It's there. It's just, once again, it's how you learn certain things and make it work for you as you go along.
Definitely, I agree with you on that. But you know, I can agree. If college is free, great. You know, excellent opportunities. Get everybody a scholarship. But when you have people taking out debt, that's a totally different story. You mentioned people investing in houses and cars, but they can't invest in their education. I'd rather invest in a house than a college degree, especially a rental property that'll pay me for the rest of my life. College degree might pay you. It's all might. It depends on the field.
It is.
And the field that you get into may not exist in 20 years.
And I think
then what?
Use the same logic for housing too, though. Because what if you buy a house in an area that's not so popular?
I can sell my house. I can't sell the degree, brother. I can sell my house. You can't sell that degree if it doesn't work out.
But listen though, that's another thing too. I feel like we have a idea of we have to get a degree in this to be able to navigate this field. Because there's people with education degrees that work in business in corporate America and make great money, and there's no business degree. So I feel like there's not always a right degree you need to have to make X amount of money. I mean, if you're into nursing, it's kind of set, like, right? Like, that's what that is. And that's how that field operates. But once again, I feel like it's sometimes a limited notion of what's out there and what we could do with what we have. There's so much power in having a degree.
Power?
It's so much. I'm telling you, it's so much power in having a degree because you can do so much. Now, does everybody have access to it? They may not. But it's like, once again, how do we create that? Power in having a degree.
Power?
I get what Jermaine is saying though, Mark, because like honestly,
to a job, key to networking, key to opportunity, but it's not. I wouldn't call it power.
So I don't know if I necessarily agree with Jermaine on the term of power, but I think for sure I definitely agree with Jermaine on the term of leverage, because like I know, like if I don't have a high school degree, and I'm talking about in the sense of a job, right? So I'm not talking about entrepreneurship or starting my own business, but if I apply to this job where I want to be a teacher, I want to be a professional working as an advocate within this startup company or this nonprofit, the fact that I have degrees, I'll definitely at least get an interview. I'll have my foot in the door, at least get an interview. If I just start saying to them, hey, I'm looking for a job, whatever, whatnot, I volunteered at schools before, whatever, whatnot, and, I'm really good with kids. Okay, well, did you go to college? Well, no. Okay, did you go to community college? Well, no. Did you finish high school? Yes, I did, but, sorry, we're not going to talk to you right now. Like, we have other applicants that are deemed more important. So I think it does give you leverage in a sense. Like, I know I would say leverage, because I know for sure that, if I lose a job today, or I lose a job tomorrow, whatever the case may be, I know for sure that even though that job won't be maybe as lucrative or as great as the other job I had, I know for sure just because I have a degree, I should at least get a call back. Is that guaranteed? No. But I definitely think that as compared to somebody else that might, I don't know, be, just straight out of high school and is trying to figure it out and go into like, associate's degree program, I don't think so. But
I should agree with that. It's definitely leverage, but how? And I think because if I'm going to someone and saying, "Hey, please get me a job," I don't feel very powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Power is an ownership.
Yeah.
Power is an ownership.
True.
That's not power to say, "Hey, can I get a job? I just fill in my application." That's not power.
I think it depends. I think it depends, because you could have ownership and still work on someone as well. And do both, and be happy doing it.
Well, that's a different story. We're talking about an interview, trying to get a job from someone. We're not talking about ownership.
True. I mean, but So you have a master's degree, right?
Absolutely not.
What you have? Bachelor's?
I have 0 degree, brother.
Okay, and you have home ownership. That's cool. So what I would say is, from my experience, one thing I know is that, so for example, at my job right now, I know that if I decide to, there's so many opportunities out there for me because I have a degree and I'm currently enrolled in a master's program. So there's definitely a lot of leverage in that. There's a lot of comfort in that, and it's power to have and it's a privilege. Like I said, I've been blessed, but it's a privilege to know that if I want to pack up and go, because my level of education, I can do that anytime that I want. Is it going to be easy? No, but I'm going to make it happen, and because I have the means to make it happen, especially in this day and age that we're living in today.
I can 100% agree with that. I can agree with that, 100%.
So when I say it's power, that's exactly what I mean.
Okay.
And when we talk about, when we talk about the power, right? So we can talk about how a lot of the home ownership, first-time home ownership programs are getting cut by people who have degrees that's in these positions making these decisions. That's power. In your degree,
that sounds like.
But that's real. That's real, though.
You the degrees doing that, or is the person in the position?
Yes, but the degree is the bare minimum requirement.
Trust me, brother. People in those positions, they don't get in because of their degree. They get in because of their network.
That's true.
They get in because of their family connection.
Of course. I wouldn't say it's not.
A lot of people have degrees. I know people. I know someone that works at Macy's with a degree. Where's the power?
Of course. And once again, coming out of college, like you said, it doesn't guarantee you get a job, right? It's how you make it work for you. You got to hustle. Nothing is going to be given.
It's the man behind the degree that makes it happen. I agree with that.
Exactly. But is it important to have that degree? Yes. But everything else is like, all right, you got to work for this.
Gentlemen, we're going to start right. Go ahead. Finish your thought.
I mean, some people don't have that luxury, right, to have that access and those opportunities, and then some people create it. And I'm a prime example of that. So it's like, it's possible.
But you know,
it depends on the person.
You know what? I agree with that. I agree with that 100%. I think it's possible, and I think it depends on the person. I think I wouldn't be where I am in my life currently if I didn't, if I wasn't the mover and shaker that I am. I mean, yes, of course, I did it the conventional route, right? I went to school, I got an associate's, a bachelor's, and a master's, but I feel as if like it's the person who really maneuvers and makes things happen for them. You know what I'm saying? But I want to stop right there because I want to get our last question out. Man, you guys are just going at it. I love it. Oh man, this is really, really good. But we kind of strayed away from our main point, but it's okay though. I'm going to reel us right back in. So, gentlemen, this is our final question for today before we move into our Word to the Wise segment. This question pertaining to our topic today of good kids in mad cities is: are there ways to hold parents accountable or to provide them with the assistance needed to focus on the holistic development of their children? All right, so I'm going to read the question again. Mark, I'm going to start off with you, and then Jermaine, I'm going to have you close out. Are there ways to hold parents accountable or to provide them with the assistance or guidance needed to focus on the holistic development of their children, whether it be academic, sports, extracurriculars? Are there ways to hold parents accountable to make sure that their children are on the right track, essentially? Mark.
There's definitely ways. I mean, it all lies in educating the parents themselves. Maybe there's programs for, people raising children so that they can learn how to. That's a tough one. I mean, it all goes back on educating the parents and showing them, maybe showing them fields that are experiencing growth that they can potentially speak to their children about. Maybe it's financial literacy programs that they can teach their children, relay that information to the children. But I mean, these are things that have been tried. I feel like there are programs out there for parents and for young adults to learn financial literacy or learn about different fields.
Yeah.
And it's tricky because someone could have tremendous success in one field, and another person could have tremendous failure in one field. So like this brother said, it does fall back on the individual and the person. Like a father or a mother that is really intentional and they really want their children to grow and be successful, they're going to do everything they can. Even if they don't know, they're going to make sure that they get the information to ensure that their children reach success. So I'm going to fall back on your quote. person behind the degree, it's the person behind, it's the person. It's always the person. It all falls down onto the way you think and what you really want to build. So that's pretty much what I have to say on that one.
Jermaine, and I'm gonna let you have the final point. Go ahead, man.
So can you ask the question again?
Yeah, for sure. So the question is, are there ways to hold parents accountable or to provide them with the assistance/guidance needed to focus on the holistic development of their children, whether it be academic, sports, extracurricular activities, and so forth?
I think there's definitely ways. So like even when I speak to my uncle, when he put his kids through, he lives in Georgia. He put his kids to school. And literally, he sits down with the teachers, somebody in the beginning of the year, in the middle of the year, and they kind of create a plan for the student, and they work through it. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they send a text message home, listen, they did great today, and just having that consistent communication. But once again, he's blessed too to be in a position where he has the time to commit to those type of things, right?
Right.
And then for me, I think about from my experience when I was also a student teaching in Rochester, one of the challenges was that parents did not have time to sit down, right? Or the times that was best for the parents weren't good for the teachers because your day ended at 3 or 5, and the parent may be working till like 12 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
And then they speak to in the morning. So it's so many challenges, right, to consider when we have these conversations about how we work with the parents to develop the students, right? And then some of the parents may not even see it in that way. They may just drop their kids off at school. You good? Your teacher's got you. I'm gonna go to work.
Yeah.
So, and so it's like, how do you spread that education, let them know how important it is for the teacher and the parent relationship to be like a partnership.
Yeah.
Consistently throughout the child education.
I agree with that.
Because you could teach them something in school and then they go home and they just unlearn everything you just taught them in class.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's true. Oh my gosh, how many times have I felt as a teacher, like everything that I've taught my kids, man, from like, anything English language arts related or even just good proper etiquette, like, yo, this is how I speak with my coworkers, this is how you speak with people, this is how you conduct yourself, this is how you hold yourself in a professional, quality of a manner. And then I always say to myself, yo, everything that I just taught them gets unlearned the moment they step in their house. The moment they get into their crib, it's all gone. So, I definitely agree with that. And for short, consistency, that's a good one. Maybe that'll transition into our final segment. All right, gentlemen, we've reached our third and final segment of the day, Word to the Wise. Mark, I know over the past couple of episodes here and there, I've been allowing you to go first. So I'm going to allow you to gather your thoughts and collect yourself, and I'm going to go first. And Jermaine, since you are our guest for today, I'll give you some time to collect your thoughts as well, and then you'll go last. For today's Word to the Wise segment, my word to the wise would be, so when I say word to the wise, I want to be very specific in regards to who we're talking to, because we've talked about parents today, we've talked about mentors and leaders, and we've talked about the students, the boys, the kids themselves. I want to talk to the kid. I want to talk to that good kid in the Mad City. My word to the wise would just be learn. And the reason why I use the word learn is because, you need to learn more about, your surroundings. You need to learn more about, why your teachers are perceiving you the way that they perceive you, with the bias that they have to label you as someone who just wants, someone who just wants to, hustle and sell, nickel and dimes on the corner or whatever, whatnot, as someone who, is only going to end up in a prison cell. Learn as to why your teacher might be playing flashing lights in the hallways or in your classroom and saying that, this is, why this song is important, because you're going to end up in cuffs, So like learn. Why is the system set up this way to the point where, wherever I turn, it's going to be a detriment. Learn as to why, my dad is telling me I can't go out of this 10-block radius. Learn. So I say learn. I say, it might be hard, especially for, kids at that young, tender age of like 12 to 14 in middle school, because their brains are expanding so much and, they're nowhere near the final form of development. But learn, take the time out to learn as to why things are the way they are, and then you'll start to see, even if you can't learn within the age range of 12 to 15, as things start to continue and starts to move forward in terms of time, you becoming 15, 18, 21, 24, just try to stay out of trouble and just learn. I'm not saying you have to go to college. I'm not saying that you need to be a whiz kid or ultimately achieving, such as myself or Jermaine or Mark, and be one of these top dudes. But I want you to eventually become one of these top dudes, and the only way you're going to do that is if you learn. Pick up a book, on your free time. Take that time out to really flesh your thoughts, flesh your ideas, so that way you're able to speak. And learn from your mentors. If you see someone such as, and I'm speaking as a teacher now. If you see someone such as Mr. Meadows or Mr. Anglade carrying themselves in this particular way, ask them questions, pick their brain. Mr. Meadows, why do you carry yourself this way? Why do you talk to these people in such manner, such form? Learn. All right. So that's my key word. That's my word to the wise for today. Learn. Mark, what's your word to the wise?
That was an awesome one, man, for sure. For me, I'd have to say my word to the wise is search. And when I say search, I'm really going after search for mentors, search for successful people that you can learn from. Just search, just be intentional with what you want to do and find someone in that field that has done it. Whether it's on LinkedIn or whether it's on these many different social media websites, you can always get in touch with successful people that have done what you want to do. Let's say you want to be a dentist, let's say you want to be a doctor or a lawyer. You can find someone that's done it and really, really just pick their brain, like you said. Just volunteer. Whatever value you can bring to them, even if it's something small, just do it. You just want to get in front of the person that's been in that field before, because we continuously take advice from our parents and grandparents and family and friends that don't know anything about the field that you want to enter. Yeah. So all they can do is provide you with advice that they think is right. So we've got to stop. We got to stop getting opinions and need to get facts. So I think that's absolutely true. And that's definitely my word for today.
And last but not least, Jermaine, your word to the wise today. What's your word?
I want to say stay grounded. And the reason why I say that, I think, is when you grounded in yourself, regardless of the obstacles in your way, the challenges that you may face in the process of your journey, when you know who you are and you know that you deserve to be somewhere, you grounded, right? And those things are not going to stop you. So when you walk into a place and you're probably the only person that looks like you, stay grounded, because you deserve to be there just like everyone else in that room, right? And when someone make comments about you and say, listen, man, you flashing lights, this is where you're going. Nah, stay grounded, because I got this. I know where I'm going. This is what you're saying right now doesn't define me, and that's not going to stop me from getting to where I want to go. So I would definitely say stay grounded and learning who you are.
Without question. And Jermaine, if you don't mind me asking you, how old are you again? 23 from East New York, right? By the time this podcast airs, I'll be 29 from Southside Jamaica, Queens, and
I'll be 24.
Yeah, and Mark
I'm
26 from Rosedale, Queens. So East New York, Brooklyn, Rosedale, Queens, Southside Jamaica, Queens, New York. Like, these are not easy places to come out of alive and to form.
I'm not gonna lie, bro. I gotta be honest. Rosedale's really not that rough.
Okay. So what's the town over? Is it Laurelton?
We got Valley Stream and we got Laurelton. I'm not gonna
Rosedale get rough sometimes. Sometimes it get a little rough,
Yeah, definitely respect to Rosedale, but I don't want to point as if I'm hard out here.
It's crazy, because I've known some gutter people from Rosedale. That's interesting, but okay. I don't live in that hood. I don't live in that town, so I got to give you that, brother.
Hey, if you tell me you're from Rosedale, no disrespect, man, but this is nice.
Right. But I say what I say. All right, look. Rosedale, Laurelton, Hollis, one of those places got to hit, all right? Shadyville, Queens Village, one of those places around there, all right? I say this to say, and I say that because Queens Village, whatever, one of those places, please, claim Mark right now, all right? Claim Mr. Rosedale, because I say that to say that, again, like, how many times have we been in situations similar to Jermaine where teachers looked at us with a form of bias and didn't think we were going to make it out? Right now, I'm so disconnected from my high school, from my middle school, but one of these days, shoot, I'm going back to New York this week. I need to pull up on, my old middle school and show them everything that I've accomplished, that I'm a writer, I'm an author, I own my own publishing company, we got this podcast going, I'm a teacher, I'm a professor, people need to know, and I say this to the wise community out there, wise guys, wise gals. There's a lot of young men in your community that are doing great things, such as myself, Jermaine, and Mark. Find them young, invest into them, and watch them blossom, all right? Watch them grow. Jermaine, we want to thank you for coming on to the show today, man. This was awesome.
Thank you for having me.
It was a pleasure talking to you today, man. Absolutely.
Yes. I look forward to speaking some more, having some heated discussions offline.
Absolutely. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I look forward to definitely connecting.
No, for sure, for sure.
Debating with you today, bro. Absolutely.
No, really, really good. Really, really good. Jermaine, before we get out of here, could you please allow the wise community to know how they can reach you online? We want to make sure that, not only do they reach out to you, but they ask you questions, they tell you what they thought about your thoughts, your comments, and just, your whole spiel in regards to education and as well as politicking in the hood, in regards to these young black men and these young black families. So could you just shout out where people can reach out to you online and kind of get a chance to, thank you for coming on and just talk to you?
Of course. So my LinkedIn is my name, Jermaine Meadows, Jermaine, Meadows, Meadows, and it's the same thing for my Facebook. So my LinkedIn or my Facebook, you can definitely reach out to me there. Phone always in the hand, so I'll get right back to you.
Excellent. Man, again, we really appreciate you for coming on. And ladies and gents, please be sure to reach out to Jermaine. Again, the reason why I reached out to him, Mark and I do not know him personally. We hope to, after this podcast, get to know him personally, because it'll be interesting seeing these two guys debate over drinks. But again, it's really, really.
In New York City this week.
I'm in New York City this week, bro. Let's definitely link up for sure. But again, this is what's needed. This is what's important. We need more. Again, I don't want to use the idea of narratives, because I don't believe there should be a narrative of black men or young black men. This should be normal. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of crazy to me and kind of preposterous that we're talking about, and we're showcasing Jermaine because it's a showcase, or we're giving a narrative. No, this should be the norm. So let's try to get back on track, wise community, and make sure that we're pushing, our young men to be as, as strong-minded, as well-opinioned, as well-informed, as well-articulate, and as handsome as Jermaine, myself, and Mark, because that's what we're trying to do out here, right?
Absolutely, man. Don't get me wrong, man. I know we can debate all day long, but Jermaine, I love your perspective on education, brother.
Thank you, bro. I appreciate you. Love your perspective on owning.
For sure. So with that being said, ladies and gents, please be sure to leave us a review. Let us know what you thought about this episode in particular online, all right? We're on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher Radio, YouTube as well. We'll put the link to the podcast up there. And I'm forgetting one. Oh, and SoundCloud, all right? And anywhere where podcasts can be found. And even on the Anchor app. I don't shout out the Anchor app a lot, but the Anchor app is our distributor and distributes all of our episodes. So shout out to Anchor. You can find us online as well on Twitter, Wise Guys NYC, on Instagram, Wise Guys NYC, and on Facebook, The Wise Guys NYC. All right? I think that's pretty much it there. So also, just to let you all know, next week's episode 19, we actually have a really, really cool guest coming on who's actually going to pick up this conversation in regards to college. Right, Mark?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we actually have someone next episode, a very special guest, who's actually going to talk about college and everything in the perspective of, is college worth it? And you'll get a chance to hear Mark and him kind of spar and go back to back. So we're definitely looking forward to that. So, as I said at the beginning of the podcast, this is your boy, Kevin Anglade.
And this is Mark.
And we are joined by our very special guest. And you are now tuning in to the Wise Guys Podcast. We'll see you all next week.